First, we'll look at examples of tropical modernism. The tropical climate softened modernism into a new form, taking the formal qualities and essential concepts of modernism and adapting the style with local materials and regional techniques suited to warmer climates. Then we'll look at the expressive work of Louis Kahn and Zaha Hadid. We'll end with works in Japan referred to as metabolist, as well as structures made from textiles and tension cables. In Marseille, Le Corbusier created a poured-in-place concrete apartment block with a very interesting cross-section that we'll look at later in the semester. That building is raised off the ground on a muscular set of columns, or pilotis. Its defining feature is the gridded concrete sunscreen, known in French as a brise-soleil. The school in Ghana is a clear descendant. Its key distinctions are the shape of the pilotis and the greater opacity of the sunscreen in response to the more intense heat of equatorial West Africa. Both are highly symbolic arches, one marking a country's independence from the British Empire, and the other the westward expansion. One is made of poured concrete, while the other is made of stainless steel sections. Both buildings feature folded roofs forming triangular clerestory windows. While the Senegalese Fair building uses inverted embossed concrete panels to support its roofs, the hall in Joshua Tree, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright's son, supports its roof with load-bearing masonry. Another example of triangular clerestory windows can be found in the butterfly roof trusses of the bus station in Washington Heights. However, its triangles vary in size as they fill the upward sloping trusses. Many of the architects trained at Germany's Bauhaus, a school for art, architecture, and design, fled to Israel after the Third Reich came to power in 1933, and they transformed Tel Aviv into the White City. With its smooth, unornamented, planar walls and discreet window openings, the Tel Aviv apartment house is a close relative to Loz's house in Prague. But with its identical plans on each floor, as is the case with most apartment houses, Zlotopolsky House has a very different internal set of spaces than those of the Müller House, which illustrates Loz's idea of the Raumplan. The Tel Aviv house exhibits each of the 5 points of a new architecture that Le Corbusier illustrated in the Villa Savoye. 1. Pilotis raising the house off of the ground. 2. Free design of the floor plans because the columnar structure is independent of the enclosing walls. 3. Independence of the facade from the structure. 4. Horizontal ribbons of windows which illuminate the spaces evenly. And 5. Roof gardens. While the villa outside Paris has a square footprint, that of Beit Hana is far more linear and meandering. Both buildings derive from Bauhaus architectural principles of smooth surfaces and horizontal continuity, and are good examples of what is also called the international style. While both feature a tier of semicircular balconies, the spaces in England are enclosed by glass, while those in Tel Aviv are more solid so as to provide more heat resistance. The bending curve of upward sweeping ribs defines houses of worship. While the structural ribs in Liverpool bend at an angle, those in Brasilia exhibit the curvature associated with structural continuity in modernism. Niemeyer worked on both buildings, in which we see low horizontal forms with curvilinear elements contrasting with towers. The paired forms in Brasilia represent the country's bicameral form of government, while the more solitary forms in New York suggest unity. Both halls feature arcades enclosing curtain walls on all 4 sides, although the shapes of the arches differ, with circular arches in Brasilia and segmental arches in Lincoln Center. The materials differ too. Exposed concrete in Brasilia versus travertine marble over concrete in New York. In its octagonal form, Louis Kahn's assembly building looks back to the central organization of the basilica in Ravenna. The materials differ. Kahn used concrete with marble inlay, while the basilica's exterior uses Roman brick. Both buildings support medical research and illustrate Kahn's emphasis on expressing served versus service spaces, that is, spaces occupied by people versus spaces containing mechanical and circulation systems. While the Salk Institute was built from poured-in-place concrete, the laboratories use concrete for the frame and brick for enclosure. Kahn admired the 19th century industrial buildings of his hometown of Philadelphia. The brick library, with its segmental arched windows, evokes the mill, but while the mill has solid corners, Kahn breaks away the corners of the library and creates balconies in their place. Zaha Hadid explores continuous curvilinear form in the roof of the cultural center. Her design evokes the surging form of ocean waves captured so dramatically in Ray Collins's photograph. Her museum in Rome has the dynamic cantilevered forms in concrete, a fitting companion to the titanium-sheathed forms of Frank Gehry's museum in Bilbao. Her mixed-use complex in Beijing features curved floor plates and evokes the conceptual space dock by artist Ryan Church. Metabolism was a Japanese architectural movement emphasizing the organic nature of continual change in urban environments. It aimed to organize those changes by allowing for the cyclical nature of growth and decay. This unrealized project for a marine city can be added to or subtracted from, just as the production system has modular elements. Similarly, the tower in Japan consists of cubic modules that can be added, subtracted, and rearranged. Moshe Safdie's apartment complex for the Montreal World's Fair is similar in concept, but more dramatic in its inclusion of spatial cavities and roof terraces. Of all the metabolist designs we've looked at, the Sky House is most like Le Corbusier's international style icon. It is rectangular in form, lifts itself off of the ground, and features enclosed outdoor spaces. Its concrete is exposed, while the villas is covered in smooth white stucco. Tensile structures are often temporary in nature and use steel tension cables to support fabric enclosures. These two tensile structures both enclose rounded capsules of space, although the New York example is linear in its overall plan, while the Greek example is circular. Fray Otto was the father of tensile structures and may have known the tower in Ukraine. While similar in structure and form, the hall is horizontal in emphasis, while the tower is, of course, vertical. Finally, these two public buildings are both enclosed and shaded by fabric. The Zenith has a rounded form, while the library, with its filigree textile facade, occupies a rectangular floor plan.